All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Shh. Okay, thank you, everybody. So today is September 18th, 2024. It is exactly 7:15, and we are done with social hour, and we're going to dig right into our meeting tonight so we can get to our great guest speaker. I love this man. He is full of energy and does an amazing job for our city. So we have a few housekeeping items first to go over, and then we will get right into the meeting. So let's see here. Our board members, can you guys come on up here and do a quick introduction? We have a couple of our board members that are out of town today, but Bob, come on up. Don't be shy. Grab a mic. Say hello.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson. I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, and I'm the one who fights Metro, and we'll be giving you an update next month. So thank you.
Hi, Maria Calban. I chair the Legislative Committee for SOHA. Thanks, Dan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Weitzler. I'm on the Airport Committee, and I'm also the liaison to the Buckley School. And Lisa must have stepped out for half a moment, but if you have any business that you want to take up with how well or badly the Buckley School is doing, Lisa Turchin, the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer, is here this evening, as she usually is. So look her up if you have any good or bad things to say.
And I'm John Eisen. I'm the treasurer of the association.
Thank you. All right, Maria, can you come back up here for a second? So I just want to give a special shout out. I'm going to embarrass Maria tonight. I just want to give a special, especially for the folks at home. All of our single family homes for the last couple of years have been at risk. We have had, we are very blessed to have Maria Calvin. This sounds terrible, Bob.
Oh, no, I think
That's you? Yeah. So we have been very blessed to have Maria Calvin as part of our organization, but to fight for you guys, to fight for single family homes. The first draft of the housing plan came out today.
No,
The third. Oh, it's the third?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, single family homes are protected at this point. There, 2 years ago, there was it as much as 2 years ago, or was it a little bit less?
less than that.
Less than that. There was a big chance that large apartment buildings could be built in R1 single family home neighborhoods. Maria's put together a fantastic group of folks that have been working with different folks in the city, and finally they heard. And you want to say a few words about it?
Yeah. Actually, you know, we have been fighting these different drafts, and draft 3 was released yesterday, and the city is protecting single families still. But what we want to let you all know is there are lots of groups that are fighting to open up single family neighborhoods. And we're fighting this because it's nonsense. We have plenty of capacity in our city to do the housing we need. The groups like United Way, LA Times, Abundant Housing, Streets for All are fighting our electeds to make sure that these single family neighborhoods are open. So, I'm sorry? For apartments, I'm sorry, opened, in other words, rezoned to allow apartments to be built in them. So right now, the draft that was just released keeps us intact, and they're going to have another commission hearing next Thursday, and then it goes to the city council, so we're not done yet, we're still fighting, but they are listening to us, and our United Neighbors, which is citywide, happened to write a lot of comments and letters to the city regarding this. And apparently the planning department said they received 3,000 public comments, and 75% of them was to protect single family neighborhoods. So considering we have such huge groups against us, I think we did awfully well uniting and speaking up, and that's what we have to
100%.
be doing.
And hold on before you put the mic down. Who started United Neighbors?
I did.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Anyway, you guys,
Thank
Maria
you.
Calvin,
Thanks
everybody,
very
thank
much.
you so much. And when it's actually finalized, this microphone is off. There you go. All right. So anyway, when the final nail gets in the coffin and happens, we'll open up some champagne and celebrate. God, John, Bob, can you turn this down a little bit? This is awful. I'm not going to use the microphone. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, this one's worse. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have our senior leads come on up here. We have a few city official representatives who want to come on up here, do your introductions, and then we can get right into the meeting. Is Jose going to be speaking tonight? There's a couple electeds. Come on up, you guys.
So I'm going to be speaking on behalf of my partner and myself.
He had tooth surgery.
Can't really tell. Good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Mariana Romo, and I cover the northern part of Sherman Oaks, and my partner covers the southern part of Sherman Oaks. We've been extremely busy working with our residential burglaries and hot prowls. For those that do not understand what a hot prowl is when a resident is inside the house and the burglar comes in. That is what becomes a hot prowl. We've had approximately 19 to 20 arrests with burglars with the help of neighbors like yourself. And we've also had several task forces with undercover detectives that have gone out there surveilling these individuals and taking them down after a burglary has occurred. With that note, I am here to explain what our volunteer program is. We are actively asking for volunteers, whether you want to be in uniform and go out in a BMW with our city seal, you're our extra eyes and ears, or you can also be in plain clothes just like you are now, and you're out there conducting surveillance with a uniform officer, and you're providing information to us, license plates, description of individuals, and we do the investigation ourselves. But we are actively looking for volunteers. If you are interested, please let us know. Myself, Officer Romo, my serial number is 40229@lapd.online, 40229@lapd.online, or my partner, Officer Saldana, 30853@lapd.online. One more time, 30853@lapd.online. And we also have neighborhood watch meetings. We are going out to our communities as much as we can, and we will be offering crime prevention tips, just like we do on a monthly basis here. But if you have a group of individuals, whether it's 5 neighbors or 60 plus neighbors, please let us know, and we'll go out and go out to your specific community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Come on up. Microphone right there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lee Krogley, and I'm the new Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for CD4. For those of you that I didn't get a chance to meet last time, hello. I recently joined the CD4 team, and I'm grateful to be here and get the chance to talk to all of you tonight. As there have been an uptick in Sherman Oaks burglaries, and as our SLOs just parlayed to us as well, I wanted to let you guys all know what our office is doing in terms of we are staying in touch consistently with LAPD and Captain Zine. Better now. We are staying in touch with LAPD and Captain Zine, working on any updates that we can give out to the community as we get them. And thanks to swift work from them, we're grateful to report that there were 7 arrests made in connection with the strength burglaries in Sherman Oaks. So I think that's pretty great news, or good progress at least. We're continuing to work with the mayor's office as well and Congressman Sherman's office. LAPD has also established a task force to provide dedicated investigative resources, has increased its patrols on residential streets, including deploying horse patrols and additional cars So if you do have any concerns, please reach out to your SLOs or our office as well. We're happy to connect you or give you any updates or information that we do have. Additionally, I do want to say that my main goal as a field deputy here for the first few months is to speak with and meet with as many community members as possible. I have some business cards with me, and I would love it if we could connect for a coffee or a brief Zoom meeting. I would really like to hear directly from each and every one of you about what your concerns are and your thoughts are, and make myself a resource for you here in Sherman Oaks. I worked in Sherman Oaks for almost 3 years in Congressman Sherman's office, just down the street. I grew up in the Valley all my life, so not only do I love the Valley and want to create positive change here, but I understand that as constituents, you want your voices heard, so please let me hear your voices. I'd love to set up a time for us to speak, and if you don't catch me before I leave, I'm gonna leave some business cards in the back. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Diane with Assemblymember Laura Friedman's office. The Assemblymember has 13 pieces of legislation which are currently sitting with the governor's office. We haven't heard that anything's been signed or vetoed yet, so the office is eagerly awaiting to hear from the governor's office on those 13 pieces of legislation. I wanted to mention to you this evening that if you get emails from the Assemblymember, you may have received an invitation to the State of the Entertainment Industry Forum that she's hosting on Tuesday, September 24th. It is over Zoom. It's at 5 p.m. We will have panelists participating from IATSE, SAG-AFTRA, MPA, the California Film Commission, and Mayor Bass's newly created Entertainment Industry Council. So if you're interested in hearing what's happening in the entertainment industry, please feel free to join us. If you did not get the email, I have some additional flyers with my business card attached. If you email me, I'm happy to send you the link to RSVP for the Zoom. And as always, if you need help with the state agency, issue with Franchise Tax Board, DMV, any state agency, please call the office, 818-558-3043. We're happy to be of assistance.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, sorry, I'm double teaming now. Hello, okay, there you go. I'm so sorry. I'm double teaming on Zoom, so I apologize. But my name is Marta Escobar, and I'm the I am the field deputy for Supervisor Lindsay Horvath. I don't have a big update, I do apologize, but the biggest ones that came out of the county board was the support for Proposition 3 and Proposition 4, Prop being the biggest one, authorizing $10 billion in general obligation bonds for water, wildfire prevention, and protection of communities and lands. So just essentially ensuring that we are doing our job to what we can for the environment with yeah, those are the biggest ones, but thank you all, so sorry.
Thank you. Maria, did you want to make another announcement or you're good? Okay. Jack, you want to come on up here? Okay. So while we're waiting for Jack to come on up here, if you guys don't read City Watch, you should. Can I just see a show of hands, and don't be embarrassed, just raise your hands if you read City Watch. Okay, great. So about half of you in this room don't read it, and you really should. It's a great, great blog, and they really, these are folks that are, I don't know, are you guys, you're not paid, are you? I don't know. I mean, no. Okay. These are some of them are journalists, and some of them are just regular guys like Jack, who just kind of hunker down, watch what's going on, and report on it, which is really, really great. So I'm excited to have Jack here to tell us what he's been doing. We've got some great questions for him as well. Can you give us a little bit of background on yourself? What makes you tick? Just who's Jack?
My name is Jack Humphreville. My name is Jack Humphreville. I live in Windsor Square, which is on the other side of the hill. I've been in LA for 40 years. I was an investment banker when I moved out here. Can you hear me now? Okay. I live in Windsor Square. I've been out here for 40 years. I've worked as an investment banker for Drexel Burnham Lambert, Beverly Hills, And then we later on purchased the recycling and classifieds, which fortunately we sold to the LA Times a number of years ago, and continued that business for a number of years. The reason I'm interested, when I moved out here, I always had a little bit of a political bent. I love newspapers. And probably about 15, 20 years ago, I got interested in the city politics, in particular pension plans. And when some guy in DWP rates and when the head CFO of the Department of Water and Power told me I didn't know what I was talking about, I happened to have to had to refer him to the annual report, and obviously he hadn't read footnotes 12 and 13. And therefore, you know, I had a bunch of people that were neighborhood activists that, will you work with us? So I've been writing for City Watch for probably 15, 20 years. I've probably done 1,300, you know, articles on a variety of subjects, but they basically involve the Department of Water and Power, the rates, and also the city's finances. Unfortunately, they give me too much material. I do this for three reasons. One, I find it intellectually challenging. I like to know what's going on in the city. The second reason is I think it's somewhat of a, you know, civic duty in that a lot of people aren't doing what I'm doing. The third thing is I've never been very good with authority, so I like being a pain in the ass. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that down at City Hall. So, can you?
All right. Can we turn up a little bit? Okay, I'll talk quieter and Jack's gonna talk louder. Is that better? Try Jack.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
Okay. So should I start or what, how do you want to do this?
Well, yeah, you already did start.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you some questions. Do you have something else that you want to go over?
I have a little bit of a presentation.
Okay, go for it, yeah.
Basically, starting off, the city's finances are a mess. And from my perspective, the mayor and the city council aren't going to do anything but continue to kick the can down the road and as the city's finances deteriorate. And then when they wonder why we don't trust them, especially when they ask us for more money, like approving ballot measures. This year, the city, and in November, the city has 6 or 7 measures on the ballot. None of them involve our money. There's redistricting, there's ethics committee, and some other nits and that. But on the other hand, you know, we have ballot measures for the state, for the county, and for LAUSD. And if you go out there and look at the impact of this, you're going to find that Angelinos, people that live in the, reside in the city of Los Angeles, are going to be hit up for about $1.1 billion. Now, that's just throwing money around, billion here, billion there, as they used to say. But putting that into terms that we understand, if that $1 billion was applied to our real estate taxes, your property taxes would go up 13%. If it was just the sales tax, we'd have a 10.6% sales tax as opposed to 10.5%. And the reason for that, and the way I came to these numbers, is there are 2 ballot measures on the state, for 10 billion for climate change and 10 billion for schools. We have 10% of that. That's $2 billion. The annual carrying cost on that is basically $120 to $140 million a year. LAUSD has a bond measure for $9 billion, and the city has 90% of the assessed value. So we get we pay 90% of that, and that's give or take $500 million. And then we have this lovely thing called Measure A, which is the half-cent sales tax to fund the homeless situation. And that's 500. Our share would be about $500 million. So you add that together, it's 1.1 billion, 1% on your sales tax, and 13% on your real estate taxes. Now to get back to one of the things, when Bob called me up, he said, "Will you talk about the budget and the structural deficit, things along those lines?" The city's budget is balanced, or so they tell us. It's an $8 billion general fund budget, but that's a bunch of crap. And the reason it is that they skip a lot of expenses. So the classic one this time around is the liability claims or litigation. It's about $100 million this year. They've already hit the $100 million and then some. Last year it was $250 million, and it'll probably be that much. So there's a $150 million shortfall. There's probably going to be a bunch of police overtime and fire department overtime, as there's been every year, so that's probably another 50 to 100 million. So the budget that's balanced is not balanced. I mean, they're just blowing a lot of smoke in our face. So, you know, we have and also, they're not properly funding our infrastructure. You think your streets are getting any better these days? I don't think so. Are they properly funding the pension plans? I don't think so. I'll talk about both those in a little bit. We have what we call a structural deficit. And the structural deficit means we're going to have deficits forever. And Mayor Bass came out there on April 20th when she announced the budget and said, we're in clover. We're going to have a $160 million surplus in the year ending, for the fiscal year ending June of 2029. Well, that's a bunch of baloney too. And one major reason that the city's projections don't include any raises for the labor union. And you know, let me ask you this. When was the last time the city's public sector labor unions went home without anything? And they've been managing to bust the budget in 2019 and 2023, you know, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. So we don't have a balanced budget. So the $160 million surplus that the mayor was talking about is actually going to be 170. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to be $175 million in the hole. You go out over the next 4 years, the cumulative deficit is going to be over $500 million. That's an average of $125 to $150 million a year. So how's the city going to balance the budget? Very simple. They'll raid the reserve fund, which, by the way, has been depleted by $400 million this last year to cover all sorts of various expenses. They'll cut services by either just not filling your potholes or laying off people, or they don't lay off people, they eliminate positions. So you'll have that. And then, of course, the other way is, you know, they'll try and raise our taxes, which that obviously takes a vote, but that gets pretty complicated. I mentioned unfunded pension liabilities. That's one of these things that doesn't really show up in the balance sheet. But the city has an unfunded pension liability of $8 billion. That means it's about 86% funded. But that assumes a 7% investment rate assumption, which, according to this guy named Warren Buffett, who I think knows a little bit about stocks and bonds, he thinks 6% would be high. And if we're at 6%, the deficit goes from 8 billion to 19 billion. That means it's only 70% funded. Now, on the one hand, the city has done a very good job relative to other governments. They have funded their post-retirement medical benefits. And that started in about the late 80s with a guy named Ron Dayton and Keith Comrie, who was the chief legislative analyst and the chief administrative officer back in the late 80s. So that's one thing that we have going for us. Deferred maintenance is another thing that doesn't show up. That's about a $10 billion ticket. $5 billion for our streets and sidewalks. And these are numbers that are in the city's financial reports, by the way. $2 billion for rec and parks. And then you're going to have all sorts of things for the buildings, HVAC systems, just basic building maintenance. How about buying a few new cop cars and various other types of transportation vehicles? So it's a $10 billion ticket. So that's something that they haven't focused in on. And I think which I think is criminal. Another thing is where on rec and parks, the city has gone out there and had to put together a thing called full cost recovery. And the Department of Recreation and Parks is what is considered to be a very important part of the city. And as a result, the charter has a provision in there that the rec and parks gets a certain amount of money every year based on the assessed value. Fine and dandy. But the city back in 2010 put in this thing called full cost recovery. And as a result of that now, about 45% of the allocated money, charter allocated money, gets kicked back to City Hall. This year it's $125 to $130 million. And since this program went in, it's been $1 billion. And you wonder why our parks are a mess, or the bathrooms. Ron Galpern did a report on the bathrooms, which were just unbelievably bad.
Jack, let me just stop you on a couple of things. I think you're talking over, you know all this stuff. You just talked about kickbacks at 45%. So tell us what that means. So the city, let's say this park here receives $100,000 in fees. You're saying 45,000 of that $100,000 goes to the city general fund?
It is not allocated by park. So the Department of Recreation and Parks has a budget of about 300 million, give or take, allocated. And let's say 50% of that, $150 million, goes back to the city's general fund to be used to pay for cops, pay for fire department, fix streets, things along those lines. And and as a result, the staffing of the Department of Recreation and Parks, especially on the maintenance side, has been dramatically reduced.
Okay. Can we come back to the budget and go into some of the questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago, the New York Times did a story, front page, about the council members that are in jail and the corrupt politics of Los Angeles, and the fact that the biggest reason for that, or one of the reasons they pointed their finger at, was the lack of journalists and journalism in the city of Los Angeles. You did a very similar story about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago as well, right? So I was at an event the other night with you about with the Valley Current, and they just did a piece. Well, first off, I'd like your comments on that, and I want to talk about the piece that they just put out today.
Yeah, I mean, the LA Times, the newsroom has been used to be 1,000 people, now 400 people. Plus, we won't get into the editorial department, which is a completely different story, but they just don't have the staffing that they used to have. And the people that some of the people that have mobility, they're gone. So you just don't have that many people able to do it. The other thing is that the circulation of the LA Times is in the toilet. When I first moved here, I think the circulation was 1 million copies. Average circulation was like 1.5 million copies a day, and on weekends was, I think, 1.5 million. The Sunday game was 1.5 million. The last circulation report, which I got from they have to file with the United States Post Office, said the average daily circulation was 123,000. The electronic, the website has 350,000 paid subscribers, and that's been flat for the last 2 years. So there's just not a lot of money coming in there. They're trying to bump the subscription rates. They'll say it's worth whatever it is, but they're not getting the money. So there's a problem.
Okay. So there's definitely a problem, and again, if no one's going to report on these politicians other than City Watch, guys like Jack and organizations like the Valley Current, they're kind of free to do whatever they're going to do. Who's going to hold them accountable? So good on you for doing that. So you read the Valley Current piece this morning? Yeah. So did anybody else just show of hand? Yeah. So if you did not read that, read it. They did an investigative report on the UTLA, and Jay had it wasn't just on the UTLA. It was the money that they have received from
the American Rescue Plan.
Right, the American Rescue Plan, and they have wasted. They received the county of Los Angeles has received $550 million on to build housing for homeless
and buy housing.
And buy housing, and only 30% of that is actually been used. 30%. And why don't you make it?
Well, the West Side Current, the Valley Current went out there and looked at these 32 locations, and they found out that 70% of the units were not being occupied. The places weren't even open for business, and it just sounds like it's a complete mess. And at the same time, they're going to come out there and ask us to increase our sales tax by 0.5 cent, $1.2 billion. That's like a reward for bad behavior. Speaking of the housing, there's actually a very funny situation. The city and the county agreed with this group called the LA Alliance, which is a downtown group that were suing the city and the county and Los Angeles Housing Service Authority about stuff on Skid Row. So they agreed to something. Well, they weren't abiding by it, and the LA Alliance hauled them into court. And the Judge Carter there said, well, what are all the facts and figures? They said, you know. And so they hired a consultant to review this. Now, normally they would go out and hire Bob and Jack as their consultant. You know, two people that don't know squat. This time they hired a firm called Alvarez and Marcel. And these guys are the real deal. I mean, they're gonna have to pay them a couple $1 million. They're in the midst of doing the report. One of the problems they've had is they need to get the information. So they went to Judge Carter, who's a federal district court, by the way, and said, hey, you know, these guys aren't doing this stuff. And they said, well, we can't do this. And I think they used Alvarez and Marcel said, well, this is a bunch of spaghetti that they're giving us, we can't figure it out. And the judge said, I don't care. You get this stuff, you're working on my time, not your time. And oh, by the way, Mayor Bass and Lindsay Horvath, except, you know, the queen of the homeless, are being called in front of the judge to, you know, answer to what the hell's going on. So that hopefully that report is going to be coming out relatively soon, which will be a damning report, just in time for us to, you know, look at it before we get our investigation. But the homeless thing it's an absolute circus.
So let's talk about the homeless issue. One of the things that is one of the root issues happened 30 years ago when Jerry Brown first took office. And there used to be something in the state of California, like every other state have, which is you had to qualify to be a resident in order to get state benefits. But Jerry Brown, when he first went to office, said that doesn't seem fair. If somebody needs our help, they should get our help. So he took the residency off and made it 0. So anybody who comes from any state, if they need state assistance, they can get state assistance, which is very charitable of the state of California. But what it did was it opened up the floodgates for every other state, every other city to send their homeless to California. So on that report that was in the Current today, they interviewed a retired veteran in a wheelchair. And he said he arrived in Los Angeles just recently from Missouri with the hopes of getting away from himself and making a new start. And, you know, again, it's not new information that these states pay one-way tickets to these people who are feeding off of them. And they come out here and they get immediate benefits. Why do you think the legislators in California and in Sacramento aren't just saying, let's do what every other state does, which is create 2 years, 3 years. You have to show that you're, I mean, that would stop the influx, right?
I don't know what the answer is. You know, they don't have their heads screwed on properly. But talk a little bit about the homeless. Los Angeles has 1.2% of the population of the United States. We have 7.5% of the homeless. So we have a disproportionate, 6 times disproportionate amount of the homeless relative to the rest of the country. I think our people, you know, people have been dumping people into LA, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that because a number of the surrounding cities and towns are going to start cracking down on the homeless. And where are they going to come? Hello, LA. Here we're coming. So we're going to have a disproportionate number. So I think it's not only the legislators, on the legislation, but I think we also have Mayor Bass and the city council who are part of this game too. So.
All right, Jay Weitzler had sent a question in for you about the UTLA, the mansion tax. It was put on the ballot a few years ago and passed. And basically, it's any properties over $5 million, any property, not just single-family homes, but apartment buildings, shopping centers, anything over $5 million, gets the honor of paying an additional 5% to the city of Los Angeles. So, what my opinion of this is a little bit, might be different than yours, but I'd love to hear your comments on it. Developers that I know aren't developing in the city of Los Angeles. They're not building apartments. They're not building anything in the city of Los Angeles because they can't sell them, because they can't build an extra 5%. They can't get the price to get a profit out of it. So at this meeting that we were at the other day, there was a couple land use guys there, and they were saying that all their business is in surrounding areas of Los Angeles and not in Los Angeles. And according to Jay's question, it was supposed to raise $900 million to date, and it's raised just $215 million. So, and is that money being spent well? What's your take on UTLA?
A couple things. First of all, it's billed as a mansion tax. It's more of a tax on commercial real estate and apartment buildings. I think like 75% of the money that they projected to came from apartment buildings, but mansion tax sounded a lot better. I think the other thing is, you referred to it, that the building is way down. I haven't seen any specific numbers on permits, but from what I think I saw something like permits are down 20%. Now, I would imagine the dollar value is significantly more than that, because the guys that are building, it's not going to be a single family $10 million home. It's going to be a $100 million development on Hollywood Boulevard. So I think I think the net of it is that the amount of building that's going to go on is going to be less. It's going to have a dramatic impact on, let's say the trade unions. And I think it's also going to have a big impact on housing, and that who wants to build housing in LA. I think it's an unmitigated disaster. Now, they're going to use some of the money to keep people in housing. So if somebody's about ready to be tossed, be evicted, they might lend them a few or give them a few bucks to make sure they stay in their apartment, because it's probably better staying in the apartment than having to go on the street. Sounds reasonable. They're probably going to try and build some interim housing, maybe some permanent supportive housing. Although, they're pulling in $20 million a month, let's say, versus the number they were talking about was, $75 million a month. So there's just not the amount of money that's going to be in there. The other thing is that this is going to be development, the investment community just going bonkers. So I would not be surprised to see something hit the ballot to repeal it, hopefully.
Speaking of ballots, there's a ballot measure on the November ballot that is being sold right now as California Dreaming. I don't know if you guys see the commercials. It's California Dreaming. It's not affordable to live in California anymore. And the only solution to that is rent control across the board. So that's the solution for California Dreaming, rent control across the board. Single family homes, condos, apartments, anybody who lives in California, any property owner, whether you own one home or whether you own 10 homes, but most of the people in California own 1 or 2 homes who are landlords. If you choose to rent your unit, or if you've been renting your unit or your single family home for years and years, once this goes into effect, if it does go into effect, the maximum you can, when that person moves out, the maximum you can raise it is 5% a year. That's it. So again, everybody, or a lot of people that I have spoken to said that they're not going to be able to, they're not going to rent their homes. They'll just sell their homes.
One of the things you have now is vacancy control. Right. So you move out of your apartment, you can charge market rates, and that's the savior for a lot of people. I happen to be against rent control. The primary reason being, I think it's an impediment to development. I'm going to go out there and make an investment in, to build an apartment building. I want to have a certain rate of return. And if I can't can't increase my rents, you start off at a relatively low rate where you're making maybe 5% of your money, but over time, you can increase that rate. Well, if you can't do it, then I'm not going to invest. And so I think, here we are at a housing shortage, and they want to make it even tougher to build. And LA is already, hard enough as it is. The other thing is, I don't trust the guys downtown. And if they get rid of rent control, you can just imagine what these rascals downtown are going to do.
All right. Our electeds are completely asleep at the wheel. The businesses that are moving out of California have moved out of California. Any comments on that?
I can speak firsthand to that. I mean, we had a business, and given all the labor laws and it's so tough, we probably moved 50, 75 jobs, out of California, both here and up in the Bay Area, to Michigan, where people worked harder. We didn't have to pay them as much because they didn't have as a high cost of living. So it was a no-brainer. And I think I've seen a lot of my friends, they reach retirement and they're gone. They go to Florida, they go to Tennessee, they go to Texas, where there's not an income tax or a capital gains tax.
So, did everybody drive into the parking lot today? So did anybody notice there was a food stand right on the corner? Okay. So that is so indicative of what's happening in Los Angeles. It's a Mexican food stand right on the corner, right across the street from a brick and mortar Mexican restaurant. That Mexican restaurant, who's a brick and mortar, collects sales tax that the city gets, is subject to, pays a bunch of fees as far as permit fees. And one of the biggest things is, has a health department for this county of Los Angeles inspection at least once a year. These pop-ups all over the place are not policed at all by the county or the city. They do not go out and see if they're using gloves. They have zero letter certification. They pay zero. They don't collect tax, or if they do, they're putting it in their pockets. Thoughts on that?
I mean, that gets into the vendors, and I'm not really an expert on that.
Okay. You think it's fair?
No.
Okay. You're an expert then.
Although I must admit, when our office was at Mid-Wilshire, right across from the LA County Museum, right across from the County Museum, and we really enjoyed those food trucks. I mean, they had good food trucks. It wasn't, Bob's, Bob and Matt. It was like, you'd have Sonora Cafe or, you'd have some of the French restaurants. And
I love food trucks and I love the entrepreneur. I'm not saying that. My son lives in New York. I go to New York a few times a year and visit him. The food trucks in the streets of New York, the streets of Manhattan, all have letter grades. All pay the city a fee. They clean up, and they're keeping the folks that can't afford and the folks that can afford to eat at those stands healthy. They're also collecting sales tax, and they're monitored. And the city of New York makes a lot of money on those fees, and it's regulated, and it's clean, and it's decent. Los Angeles has to take the lead from somewhere.
In my neighborhood, there's a lot of construction going on, and every day, starting around 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, the roadshows come by, beep their horns, and all the workers come out and get fed. There's a purpose to them, but that's not just camping out right in the middle of the street.
No, look, a lot of those food trucks do have letter grades. A lot of those folks are legal or are legitimate businesses. Well, they're all legitimate businesses. They're just doing business in a different way. Okay. I think I've asked all the questions that were on here, or you already stated all the questions. Does anyone from the audience have any questions? Yes.
What do you think about, did you hear about the project with Costco down in Homeowners that was all over the news today?
Repeat, these asked about, have you heard about the Costco proposed development in Baldwin Village?
Yeah, I think it's like a 20, there's gonna be 800, Costco's gonna be the bottom. There's gonna be like 800 apartments or something like that upstairs. It's being privately financed, no city money, no state money. I think they get some zoning basis. It's probably on transit-oriented community or transit-oriented, whatever the hell it is. So it sounds like a legitimate deal. I mean, it's privately financed, and the city's not costing the city any money.
Do you think that would be something that would be somewhere in the valley, not particularly Sherman, so nobody has a heart attack, but someplace in the valley that they could get, 5 acres like that, do something like that?
I don't think they have 5 acres, but is it? Well, I think that depends on your zoning. I'll let Maria handle that one.
Look, there's, the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association is all for good projects. There are certain transportation corridors like Sepulveda and Burbank and even Ventura Boulevard, where, you know, higher density is going to happen. It will happen. It's already zoned, and so it should happen. And those are the areas that maybe one day we'll have mass transportation and we'll have a subway, you know, system over the hill. We'll have more than 2 stops in the valley. But who knows? Yeah, Jay.
Speaking of city council from time to time, what do you think our city council representative, the CD4, and another couple of council people are about ready to give away a huge tax break to a couple of major hotel developers that don't seem to need the tax break.
Universal, right?
Yeah, Universal is one of them, I'm sure you know. There's another one, I forget exactly which that one is. The hotel chains are very successful as they are, and they're about ready to give an $80 million tax break in the Universal case to the developer. Do you believe that everything is on the up and up relative to the granting of tax breaks in this kind of a situation, or do you think there's more at play? And do you think it is wise to give major developers those kinds of tax breaks when they probably build a hotel anyway?
Well, I have quite a few thoughts on that. First of all, you have Universal City Hotel wants to, you know, expand 400 units, which would, you know, if they got the amount of money they want, it'd get $80 million paid out at 14% hotel tax for the next, let's say, 15 years. The development incentive agreements were put in place not for Universal City, but they were put in to encourage development around the convention center. Simple as that. Being in walking condition, in walking distance to the convention center. That's point one. Point two is the hotel is in LA. Universal City is not in LA.
It's in the county of Los Angeles, not the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, so we're not getting, we don't get any of the benefit of Universal City. Yes, we get something from them. The third thing is, I think, as you implied, is that Universal City Hotel, I guess it's the Hilton, if I'm not mistaken. You know, their occupancy rates are like are way up there. I'm sure they have good rack rates. So they're probably making a fortune. And I don't see any reason why we have to finance them, especially when we have all sorts of other needs, whether it's the homeless, whether it's potholes, whether it's sidewalks, or whatever the heck it is. So I think that, I think that Universal City is not one. There are 2 other ones downtown. One's the Venice Hope Hotel, which is connected to a residential development. And I think that's probably 50, 60 million. And then there's a $1 billion development over in the river that's 3 miles away, Mesquite, whatever it is. And, they want $50 million. And I just think that's not our business. And I just don't think we should be doing it.
What do you think the motive is? City council's not, these aren't stupid people. What do you think the motive is in giving these tax breaks that most of us would agree they shouldn't get?
Well, I think initially the tax break was for Anschutz. Anschutz came down and Phil probably put $3.5 to $4 billion into downtown LA. Staples, LA Live, all routine. I think he's entitled to the benefits. He was the first leader. As for the other 7 down there, I don't agree. But that's, the people in the convention industry, the hotels and all that stuff, thought it was a great idea. We need 10,000 or 8,000 units within walking distance, or 10,000, pick a number. And so that was the game they played. I don't think there was, I haven't heard of any kickback and stuff like that. And I think I think you get into companies like Marriott and those, I think they'd have to be very, very careful not to take too many kickbacks.
All right, I saw a hand in the back. Yes.
Everywhere I look in Sherman Oaks, I see apartment buildings going up, especially the one at the Sun Kids building. How are we ever going to handle the traffic that is going to create?
That's not my area.
That's that's a whole night question. The state of California came out with a plan from the legislators, mostly in the Bay Area, and sponsored by the California Association of Realtors and sponsored by some very big high-tech industries that used to be in Sacramento, in the Bay Area that aren't there anymore. But they came up with this plan that said that California needs more housing. And so they went to every single, there's a state mandate that every city has to build more housing. And I think the city of Los Angeles is what, 800,000, is that correct?
Well, they had 480,000, but they had enough that they only needed 255,000 in the next.
Additional, but our portion of it was, I believe in the very beginning, 800,000 was the number. So those types of projects, they're entitled to do it. And again, where are they going to get the water? Where are they going to get the infrastructure? Where are they going to get, all those questions are great questions. But again, it's mandated. And so the city has to fast track some of these projects. The Sunkiss project was actually scaled down, but our streets are, yeah, thank you, Nancy. Streets like Riverside Drive can handle more traffic, but a lot of the feeder streets like Hazeltine can't. A lot of the smaller streets like Moore Park cannot. The idea is some of these projects is to build retail in, which they're doing there, like the Costco thing is as well, where it's a mixed use, where it's commercial along with it, and they were hoping that people would Uber and use mass transportation. But again, the San Fernando Valley has 2 million people and has two subway stops total. Two. One in Universal City and one in North Hollywood. And they're end of line stops. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So, mass transportation, I don't know. Anyone else have any questions for Jack? Yes, in the back.
The utilities are scary. IMT, I live a block away from the IMT project, Sunkiss, and every month our water's cut off because they can't get another pipe or another pipe breaks. So, and it's a mess. And they, on Friday, they hit the, at AT&T landline post. So we haven't had, our phone, or landline hasn't been working since last Friday.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of scary seeing that 230 more units are moving into the neighborhood and, utilities or the pipes are so old that they keep breaking down. That's what's scary for me.
So if Jack doesn't do a story for you on that, reach out to the Valley Current.
You mentioned DWP. I really want to ruin your evening now. Over the next 10 years, you can expect your water bill and your power bill, the rates to go up 4 times. They're going to quadruple. Yes. And the reason for that is on the power side, they have the LA 100 renewables. And by 2035, they want the power system to be 100% working with renewable energy. That's going to cost $86 billion. The ratepayers advocate, Fred Pickle, has come out there and said that those rates, the escalation of these rates and bills is unreasonable. What has the Board of Commissioners done? No. Just go by. The second one is on your water. They have a program called Pure Water. Otherwise, it's going to recycle wastewater into drinking water. Ron Kay, who used to be over at the Daily News, may he rest in peace, called it toilet the tap, which just drives the people downtown every time you mention it. Crazy. But we're going to spend $20 billion on that for 4 million people. That's $5,000 a person. If you go out there and have MWD, Metropolitan Water District, do it, and they have 20 million people, that's $1,000 a pop. Yes, we lose control of the water, but if they're building the water down here, we're next to the water. Are they going to ship it? God knows where. That's expensive. On the power side, they want 100% renewable energy. There's 2 things they can do. One, as opposed to being 100% renewables, you make it 80 to 90%. And that would be a lot cheaper because getting rid of the last 10 to 20%, the incremental cost is like $1,200 greenhouse gas, ton of greenhouse gas. The current market for getting rid of greenhouse gas is $50. So, you know, it's a huge incremental cost. The other thing is, as opposed to having it be 2035, you have to be 2045, which was the original goal. But Prince Eric, that's Eric Garcetti, you know, Prince Eric decided that, you know, they're going to everybody's out environmental each other. So I think there's ways to do it. The city council, Mayor Bass, are all gung-ho on 2035 and 100%. I think they're going to get there's going to be a meeting at some point in time, and you know, people will just be too honked off about that.
So we have time for one more question. Also, mark your calendars. I'm going to get to you, Tom. Mark your calendars. Next month we're having a debate with our assembly members for this district. So mark your calendars. It's going to be a fun, take the gloves off debate. Tom?
At this meeting and other meetings, we hear about the waste and the problems that our city elected officials do, how they waste money, how they make wrong decisions and cost us money. But we never hear any articles about somebody getting in trouble for it, their heads rolling, somebody being replaced, somebody losing their job because they made a wrong decision. Besides the ballot box, what can the community do to fix and change out these people that are making these errors that are costing us all this money?
Well, first of all, a lot of people that make these mistakes are protected by civil service. So if they're protected by civil service, there's not a whole lot of things that people can do. The second thing is you have to find out why these things, why they're being so, or if they're being inefficient, how do you show that? And that the city's management information systems stink. They don't have them. I mean, their computer systems, management information systems are probably lucky if they were done in 1980. So you don't have any real accountability there, nor do you have the management that knows how to hold them accountable. So it's a pretty tough situation. One other thing, we mentioned corruption earlier. The New York Times article, which was also on the front page of the New York Times print edition nationwide, it was also the lead article on the website, I think on August 30th, highlighted the corruption in LA. They didn't talk about anything really new. We know about Jose Huizar and Mitch Englander and Curran Price and Mark Ridley Thomas and Ray Chan. That's not new. But what it did is it said there's not been much that's been done. Now the city's going out there and saying, well, we're going to do some we're going to have a redistricting commission, and we're going to go out there and we're going to have an ethics reform. Well, I'm probably going to vote for both of those. But the ethics reform, they emasculated that because of some of the issues, with regards to the union. One of the comments that was made in the New York Times article was by Miguel Santana. Miguel was our former city administrative officer, so he certainly knows, what's going on downtown. And his comment said, the root of all evil is the city council's ability to stick their nose and actually make the planning decisions, unlike any other commission in the city of Los Angeles. And David Rue and Paul Koretz put forth motions in 2020 to do two things. One was to eliminate section 245E of the city charter, and that allows the city council to assert itself in the decision-making process as opposed to the reviewing process with regard to land use. The other one was they wanted to have an oversight commission to review and keep an eye on all the real estate stuff that was going on. Needless to say, those two motions never saw the light of day. And
so ending corruption in Los Angeles could happen very quicker than it's going to happen. The Section 245 is, I was a planning commissioner, as a lot of you guys know, for the city of Los Angeles for 13 years. I saw firsthand the power with Jack Weiss and Paul Koretz, the corruption with those guys, as well as other folks. When the planning commission would go through the entire hearing process, the community would come out, the planning department would come out, everybody would come out and there would be a vote, and then the vote would be against a particular developer. And any council member could go ahead and change that with their action on the 245. And I knew for a fact Jack had received political contributions from a developer, and I know Paul Koretz had received contributions from Jack Weiss. Who did I say? Oh, Jack, sorry. Jack Weiss and Paul Koretz had received political contributions from, and it was still allowed. And the city council always votes 15-0. There's always, that's just the way it is. It could easily be solved. But no one's reporting it. And when folks do, you've reported, you've talked about 245.
Number of times.
Yep. But again, it could stop corruption in a small scale and on a large scale. And it just doesn't happen. And we continue to elect these folks that yes, Tom, one last question.
I have a question. A week and a half ago, I canceled the LA Times. I can't read it anymore. The LA Times, I canceled it. What is your interpretation or your opinion of how the LA Times has become an ultra-progressive paper that does not take objective journalism to heart? And part of that question is, how much longer do you give the LA Times as a viable newspaper in the city?
Well, my politics are obviously different than the progressive or way left-wing socialist views of the LA Times. I mean, they're having economic problems. I would not be surprised to see something drastic happen. I mean, we've seen a number of papers in the United States as opposed to printing every day. They're going 4 or 5 times a week. So it would not surprise me to see something like that. I would imagine the circulation, which was 123,000 last October, I would not be surprised to see it below 100,000. Hopefully, maybe the website's doing a little bit better. But I think, he paid $500 million for it, plus $100 million in pension liabilities. I think he got rid of some of the pension liabilities when he gave away the San Diego paper to whatever it is, Alden, the hedge fund guys. But I think he's got a real problem. I mean, they don't even have a damn sports section, right now. I mean, that drives me crazy. I mean, one of the things I would like to see, and we saw it a little bit with Eli Broad, is have the city council or people go out there and pay reporters to do the work. Austin Buettner, when he was the publisher, he said it cost $500,000 for a reporter. That would include not only the reporter's compensation, but the benefits as well as the ink, paper and the ink, and maybe the electronics too. But maybe for the city to ever enter into some evergreen contract where they finance a couple of reporters. Maybe somebody do it with LAUSD or the county. Pardon? Well, I think I'd like to see some of my tax dollars go to a little more oversight with those jokers downtown. But
thank God you're out there to provide a balance.
Let's hear it for Jack, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.